Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to take a look at the new Aero Hunter Flex. You can see this model that I have they made for me in Predator camo. Unfortunately they no longer come in Predator camo. So we're just going to kind of go over the saddle, talk about the features, what was built into it, why they built things into it. But what you're really going to want to stay tuned for is you're going to see why I'm not ditching my old Flex for the new Flex, or I'm not even going to ditch my Kestrel for the new Flex. If you're interested to see why, stay tuned. Alright, so here we've got the new Flex laid out, and obviously you'll notice there's some difference right here on this side right off the bat. There are 3 loops now. So you have your lineman's loop, which if you'll notice has changed directions. The former lineman loop was up and down. This one is side to side. Then you have your bridge attachment point here, and then you have this third additional loop which they have the leg strap attached to. The leg strap part up here, the female end of the buckle, is movable. So if you wanted to move that to your bridge loop, you could. Or if you wanted to move it up to your lineman's loop for whatever reason, you could do that as well. You could also use this loop as your lineman's loop and get more of a pull from the saddle than, say, from the waistband of it. So right off the bat, that's the really big change. They added 3 loops here. I'm honestly not a fan of the 3 loops. I would just prefer 2 loops. Another thing to notice is the waist buckle on the female side is sewn on. So you can't adjust where this lands. So a smaller guy like me, when I put this on basically with just a pair of pants, this is really far to my right side. I almost can't tighten the saddle tight enough. And then as I layer up for winter, it winds up on my left side. Not really a big deal, just something to note as well. So looking at the saddle, the changes made to the saddle, I think the saddle is about maybe 3/4 of an inch taller top to bottom. That's really not going to matter, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. You'll notice that they no longer have a frame design with the 1.5 inch parachute webbing. Previously, this parachute webbing came out and then made your lineman's loop and was framed along the bottom down here. You don't see that in this model. What you see is it is framed with this 1 inch tubular webbing. So up here at the top, we'll start at the top. Your lineman's loop, obviously, folded over, sewn back, and this is just attached to the 1.5 inch parachute webbing that they use for the waist strap. Just below that, you have, again, only 1 row of Malle webbing. The old Flex and the Kestrel had 2 rows. This is what they use the frame for, so it's a 1 inch tubular webbing goes out, it's folded over, stitched with a piece of Cordura fabric, and goes to the bottom of the saddle down here. Notice the leg straps down here at the bottom. These are once again sewn on, so you can't remove the leg straps. Then the third loop, the new loop that they have here, is again just kind of framed in between those the original frame, so it's a secondary frame, and this is why you can use this as kind of like a lineman's loop if you would rather. You get a pull, but it's going to be a narrow pull basically from around your butt. So for me, the design of this, I'll just go ahead and say this, I didn't have a whole lot, if any, input into the design of the new Flex / Merlin. Same thing, different fabric. Merlin is only mesh, similar to the Kestrel and the Kite. So I didn't have a lot of design input into this one. The other saddles I did, and so I'm not a fan of this saddle, and here is why. So when we look at strictly the new loops added, if you look at different carabiners, so this is one of the old ones that they used to send with the saddle. This is a black diamond. You can see that the opening size and the size of them is kind of important. Right? You can run either one of these two, so you can see the size here is different. One's smaller, one's larger. But for me, the issue with this comes with all of these loops being so close together. Again, when I'm hunting, I don't typically use a light when I'm at the tree. Coming up or going down, I don't use a light, and that's why I use glow-in-the-dark duct tape on my loops. But the problem with this becomes if I go to hook into, say, my lineman's loop here, again, the direction of this lineman's loop, I'm going to be reaching over with my left hand, hooking this in, and I'm pretty prone to think I got my lineman's loop completely attached on here when in all reality it didn't, because now I'm caught on my bridge attachment point as well. Same thing if I use a removable bridge and I go to hook my bridge onto here, I can very easily get caught in the third loop here. For me, I don't know why there's a third loop. I'm not a fan of the third loop. It's mind-boggling to me. I think on their Facebook page they posted that they added a third loop because they like options. Options are good, I guess, in some cases. To me, this is not a good option. Personally, I would have just stuck with the leg straps that were similar design to the Kestrel or the original Flex. So that's my biggest issue with the 3 loops, right? There's too much going on here that can create a safety issue where you might clip one thing into another. Personally, not a fan. If you guys like it, great. I'm just honestly not a fan. Now, to me, the biggest issue with this saddle is the design of the frame and the design of the saddle with the different webbing. So if we look at the way weight's going to transfer through this saddle, obviously this is my bridge attachment point, so when I'm sitting in the saddle, this is where most of the weight is going to go. So we can assume that we're going to assume basically the weight's going to travel through these 2 points, right? Through this one and this one all the way down here. The problem with that is this part, everything above this does not support any weight from the saddle. So if you're sitting in the saddle with the bridge on, you'll be able to take your hand and put your hand all the way down until it hits right here. So what this means is this part of the saddle is useless other than holding the saddle up to your waist when you're walking in. So we're going to fold this under. Right? Remember earlier I told you the saddle was about a 1/2 inch slightly taller. I thought it was anyways. Now that's a complete moot point, because what you're looking at is you're looking at a smaller saddle that your butt is actually in. Again, remember the weight's pulling on this, so the weight's transferred to these 2 points. This is where all the weight is going to be felt on your body through the saddle, is from this to this. So your saddle is now probably about 2 inches smaller than the original Flex. So now you're putting your butt in a smaller saddle together. So you may, if you're going to buy this, I would highly recommend buying a size 2 if you're a size 1. If you're a size 2 at the top end of a size 2, well, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Next is, this is designed, again, this is where all your weight's coming through. So your weight is now transferred through a 1-inch tubular webbing here and here, instead of a previously 1.5 inch parachute webbing here and here. So your weight transfer is now into a smaller area. So you're going to feel more pressure here and here, just given because the webbing is now smaller here. That, along with the third mysterious loop here, is now rigidly sewn together, basically touching both of these points. So if you'll notice, when I pull on this saddle, what happens is obviously the saddle tries to compress and bring this together. But if my body is in this saddle when this happens, what's going to happen is these 2 pieces of webbing from the third loop are now going to be pressed in by this pressure. And what is that going to create is a pressure point. You're going to have more pressure on the side of this saddle than with any other Aero Hunter saddle you'll see. And that's a two problem process. Was it's a 1-inch tubular webbing instead of 1.5 inches. So you're distributing your weight in a smaller area. Now, when this pulls and it tries to pull the saddle this way slightly, it's pushing against another 1-inch webbing, which again is going to create a pressure point. So when I sat in this saddle, I hunted out of the saddle for only about 3 days before I couldn't handle it. I had to go back to my Flex. What I felt when I was in this saddle is I felt like most all of the weight that was coming through my bridge was being transferred to this point right here on both of these. Because when this again is pulled, the weight transfers through the top one and through the bottom one, but it pulls the saddle in this way. And so when it pulls the saddle in this way, it creates a pressure point here and here. So this was a hot spot on me, and I just felt like I might as well attach my bridge to here, because that's about all of the pressure I was getting out of the saddle. Again, this will pleat open similar to the Flex, but again, you're starting off losing 2 inches of the top of the saddle to make your seat wider. So if we were to look at the frame of this saddle, pleat it out, right? So we can see this is how much space we have from the pleated version. We bring in the old Flex and we pleat it out. You can see the size difference from the new Flex pleated to the old Flex pleated. I mean, you're looking at, well, let's pull them in and overlap them here. So I would say you're looking at a good 2.5 to 3 inches difference. That's fully pleated there. Again, because we're going off of the frame design. I'm not caring about this. I'm just simply looking at where the frame is going to be on this. So I line the top up, pleat that out. You're looking at 2 inches difference. 2.0, old Flex. Frames are even on the top. Again, 1.5 inch webbing. You're looking at least another 2 inches of difference between the two. That's why, to me, I'm not trading in my Flex, my original Flex, for my Flex 2.0. All right, so this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. I told you about the design flaws on the tabletop. Now I'm going to show them to you when I'm in the saddle. So obviously, first one we're going to take a look at. So we're going to take a look at all the loops up here. Again, 3 loops. You can kind of see they're actually overlapping each other. So my lineman's loop's behind my bridge loop, even if it's on the outside. You know, it sticks out a little bit. The 3rd loop that they have here, if you really tighten down your leg straps, it can actually get underneath of your bridge loop, create a little bit of a pressure point. But for me, the biggest issue is there's just so many loops here that if you go to hook a carabiner into here, you're pretty prone to hook into multiple loops. That's not necessarily an issue. The issue is not getting the gate fully secure on your loop. So you don't want your gate to not close. You think it's closed, you lean back, it pops off, something like that, and have an issue. The second one we're going to take a look at, I talked about the wasted space. So the weight of this saddle is distributed into, or the frame of the saddle is built to distribute the weight into this strap up here where the MOLLE webbing is, and the bottom leg strap down here. So theoretically, anything above the MOLLE webbing does not support any weight. And you can see I can take my hands, I can slide my hands in there, and I can slide them around because there's no weight there. I can really illustrate this point if I undo my waist buckle. I can actually take and I can turn that part of the saddle inside out, because again, there's no weight. So there's no weight in any part of that. Again, at the biggest point, you're looking at maybe like 2 inches. So again, if you look at the footprint of a 2.0 Flex versus the original Flex, the 2.0 Flex is actually going to have a smaller footprint for your weight to be distributed in, because of the design feature change in the frame of the saddle. They actually made the frame smaller in size, so you lose a little bit of area on the saddle. When we talk about weight distribution, again, we said they changed the frame. So they went to this 1-inch tubular webbing frame design instead of keeping the 1.5 inch or 1.75 inch parachute webbing frame design. I got squirrel sneaking up on me. Chipmunk, actually. So they changed the frame design here, and the weight as it comes down through here and comes along these 2 straps with this 3rd loop, geez, the 3rd loop here, it actually squeezes the saddle together, and these 2 pieces of webbing are actually touching. So the problem that creates is, number one, the pucker. As it pulls this way, it puckers that into your side, creating a bit of a pressure point right here. But to me, what it really seems like it's doing, because these 2 pieces of webbing are touching, is the weight wants to run in a straight line. So if we go straight down this bridge loop and we line that up straight, it almost lines up better with this 2nd piece of webbing back here.
And the same thing with this one. It comes in and it makes a real hard turn. Again, straight line would be that direction where my finger's going. So it lines up better with the bottom piece of webbing. So to me, it feels like it takes more weight into those pieces of webbing. Due to that, they're more in a straight line with where the weight wants to go, and they don't kick out like the webbing you see that they have on the frame here. So to me, it really creates more of a pressure point. I've been in this video for, I don't know, this part of the video for about 2 minutes maybe. I have a real bad pressure point right here on both sides, and then I have one right about there. So just kind of between the two pieces of webbing almost on this one is where I have a bad pressure point for this. So again, to me, it's not just it's really just a design feature flaw. They changed the basis of the saddles from the Kestrel, the Kite, the Flex. They changed the basic footprint that all of those had in common, which is the frame style. They changed the frame style in it, and to me, honestly, that was a poor design change, and it creates a lot of issues with the way weight is felt in this saddle.
All right, everyone, that's it for today's video. You know, I was pretty hard on the design of that saddle, but I think it needs to be pointed out that there was some design flaws on the new Flex. You know, I really had no part in designing that saddle. I've had part in designing pretty much every saddle that Aero Hunter has put out since the original Aero Hunter, from that matter. It took a long time to get a really good design. We finally got it in what I thought was the Kestrel. You know, then we moved to the Flex, was a really good design. The pleat saddle really worked really well, but I think they kept the design of the pleat, but they changed a lot of the basic fundamentals of the saddle with the new Flex. And to me, I think they changed in a bad way and not in a good way. And so that's why, for me, I'm going to stick to my Kestrel, my original Kestrel, and my Flex that I have. I've already switched back to them. I'm out here in Missouri, been hunting here for 2 weeks now, and like I said, I only made it 3 days out of the new Flex before I had to change back to my old Flex. So I've got my old Flex and I've got my old Kestrel, and so that's what I've been running since, and what I'll continue to run for this last week here before rifle season opens. So I just kind of want to put that video out there, let you guys know that there is some minor changes. Most of them appear to be cosmetic, but they are actually functional changes that are involved in the new Flex. And so I just want to let you guys know that and point out kind of the flaws that I thought was in that saddle. So if you guys like today's video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out around here. If you guys want to see more videos or have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I try to answer all the comments that I can, try to keep up with the comments. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks, guys.